Years and years of hype, and finally here it is in hand. All right, let's find out. Hello out there, and in front of you today is a brand new knife from Spyderco, and it's one that a lot of people, myself included, have been waiting on for a very long time, because I first handled this Spyderco Swayback 2 years ago at Blade Show, taking a look at some of their prototype designs and all of that sort of thing. I know there are people who have said that they heard about this knife being in development almost as much as 10 years ago, so it has been a long time coming, and it is a beautiful knife. One that I was very excited about because this swayback design, just in general, this profile is one that I've just always been attracted to. I like it in the traditional kind of stuff, and I'm really always very excited to see something like this brought into a more modern kind of folder. So yeah, very cool, high excitement level. One of the big questions at the end of the day though is it a great knife, and is it going to be worth the high price tag of $273? So we're going to get into all of that, talk about some of the size comparisons and some of the other things that you might be able to like compare it to value wise as well. All right, before we get into those size comparisons though, to get started, I want to tell you about the packaging. Packaging is a little bit different. It comes with the fancy little sleeve here, or fancy nylon pouch. Forgot the word for pouch, but here we are. We're going to push through. Comes with the pouch instead of the Spyderco box, so there you have it. That's sort of an indicator these days that this is Spyderco pushing it to the next level. That's at least what I think of when I see the pouch. All right, and so let's get into some size comparisons, starting with the PM2. Here's the PM2, and what this will tell you is a little bit about our overall size here, because the PM2 overall length is only about a ½ an inch longer than the Swayback. But what we have on the Swayback is a cutting edge that is just about 3.5 inches, a little bit less. And then you can see that difference in the blade to handle ratio with the Paramilitary 2, just because how much longer, like I said, that blade on the Swayback is. All right, another thing, the first thing I thought of when it came to this design was the CRKT Swindle. All right, here's another Swayback kind of design, Ken Onion, a little bit more, not necessarily refined, but a little bit more sleek. You know, has this has a little bit more of a, I don't know, a more exciting kind of feel to it, let's say, just by looks. I love the curvature of this, and honestly, I prefer the design of the Swindle to the Swayback. You know, and there were a number of things that I just wished the Swayback would have that the Swindle has, but when it comes down to it, materials, quality, production, very different between these two knives. And then we have a special guest star on loan from my buddy Drew. Here is the Schliess Bowie, and this is going to be a talking point throughout the video because the Bowie is another design from Marcin Schliess. In addition to this Swayback, he's also the guy who did the Techno and a couple other things for Spyderco. And the Bowie here is one of the most sought after Spydercos that's out there, period, end of story. You know, it's one that I think goes for $400 to $500 on the aftermarket now, just because it's rare and hard to come by, and a lot of people call it a perfect knife. And we're definitely going to use this knife for some comparisons throughout the video, but most of all to demonstrate value at the end of this one. All right, so we have that. Thanks to my buddy Drew for loaning that one to me. And then finally, here is the CRK Inkosi, my only Chris Reeve. But this is going to be one of those knives that will definitely draw the comparison from the Swayback, just because, you know, Spyderco titanium frame lock. This is one of their, you know, most upscale, nicer kind of things that they do. So it's going to get that comparison to Chris Reeve, and people are going to say, well, is this worth the $273 price versus $350, $400 for a Chris Reeve, that sort of thing. So we will, again, cover all that later on. When it comes to weight, one of the things that I really like about this knife is that it is kept under 4 ounces, despite the fact that there's not a lot of interior machining. And to be honest, like, let's take a look at it. I don't think there's any interior machining. And we do have some decently thick pieces of titanium, so under 4 ounces, 3.93, pretty darn good. You know, it's a good feeling knife. It has a little bit of heft, but it's not like super heavy at all. It feels exactly the way, honestly, that I think this knife should feel. So if it were any lighter, I don't know that that would be necessary. And I know there's probably some people thinking, well, they probably could have gone the extra step and made it lighter. And there are some steps taken with this knife, some extra steps, and some levels of detail that are really impressive that just might escape you at first glance. You know, this knife, when you just look at it straight on, honestly, it looks cool, but it's not that impressive. You know, it's a titanium frame lock, and it's really easy to overlook some of the things about this that are very nice. So I'll try to cover as many of those as I can and catch as many of them, you know, as I can remember throughout this video. All right, and we're going to get into that and start with the blade. So what we have here is a blade shape that is a Wharncliffe, and it's a beauty. You know, I really, really like this blade design. It's visually attractive, it's functional, it's just got a great look to it. And the stonewash, if you can see that, and I'm going to try to bounce it around in the light and probably insert a picture or a video as well. The stonewash here is very nice. Spyderco generally does a good job with stonewashes, but it's just a good looking stonewash, and it complements the more matte kind of finish on the titanium, which we'll talk about a little bit in just a minute. All right, so we have that going for us. We do not have a really like rounded spine. The edges aren't sharp, you know, so there is like some detail work there, but there isn't like the quite rounded spine as you get on the Schliess Bowie. But what we have instead is just a very, very nice flat that transitions into one of the best looking wedges that you're probably ever gonna see on a knife. I mean, it is exceptional. And it starts all the way up here, and then it goes all the way down almost to the edge here. And I mean, it's done brilliantly. It's really, really a neat thing to look at. And so, yeah, I think the quality of what they did here on this blade is very, very good. One other thing that I'm really impressed with is the grind. So the hollow grind here is something that Spyderco could have deviated from. They could have gone with a full flat grind because they do that on a lot of their knives. They stuck with a hollow, and it's fantastic. It feels good. It has that like that visual curvature to it, which I really like, and it definitely keeps the blade pretty darn thin, which is awesome. The blade steel is CTS XHP. XHP is a steel that Spyderco describes as being like a stainless D2. I have found it to be an excellent steel to use. Have never had any issues with it whatsoever. So yeah, good steel. It's one that they use a lot in Taiwan. It could have been an S90V thing. I'm sure there's some people who are going to say they wish it was, but honestly, if you're using the knife, like, XHP is going to be great. It's going to be fine. It's going to be easier to maintain than S90V as well. So if this is a user, that'll definitely be a good thing. All right, as we move to the back of the blade, you'll see where the edge terminates. We don't have any choil. It just sort of stops in a bit of a dead spot. I guess we could have a choil there. I don't know. It's not a huge deal for me. I know it's something that people might point out, but for me, not really a big deal. What we do have, though, as we move to the very back of the blade is a nice spot right here. See this little curve, this lip? It's as close as we're going to get to a guard or a finger choil, but it's not going to be there for protection, but it's going to be a spot that says this is home when you're holding the knife. So it's going to help in ergonomics, and the ergos for this knife are actually very, very good. So as we continue to move on back and we talk about that, the ergonomics, man, it doesn't look like a knife that should be comfortable, but it is. It really is because of the quality of the machining on the handle, but then also just the finish on it as well. All right, we don't have any jimping, which you guys know I would always like to see jimping. In the Schliess Bowie we did, although it was some of the older, like really rounded, sort of crappy Taiwan jimping that they've had from some of those models in the past. The jimping out of Taiwan's gotten a lot better, just saying, past couple years, but it would have been nice to have some of that. But since we don't, you know, what do we have? We have a knife that's still very comfortable in the hand. A big part of that is the quality of the finish and the blast on this titanium frame. All right, and I'm going to try to get the details here. I'm going to try to get it as focused as possible. And again, like if I can't in the editing process, I will throw in extra pictures or videos. You can see it has like a matte kind of finish here, a little bit of a stonewash. If you bring in the Schliess Bowie, which again is a one that's on loan to me, so I don't know, you know, what is where here and what's not, but you know, it's got this more glossy kind of finish and feel, and maybe a little bit more character with that, like with that stonewash. But the more matte aspect of the Swayback here gives it a little bit more grip. It's not as slippery. It has almost a soft feel to the titanium, which, you know, when you get the Chris Reeve knife, you have that soft feel to the titanium, and this isn't quite on that level, but it's pretty darn good. So it's soft, it's comfortable, it's pretty grippy. So It's a very, very good knife in the hand. And one other thing, one other really excellent detail is the level of quality in the chamfering right here is just ridiculous. I mean, it is so pretty, and you can barely tell that there's an extra face there. You know, usually you'll have that like diagonal edge on a knife that, you know, may be more inexpensive, where you can see where that chamfering is. You almost can't tell that it's there because it's so fine. And yeah, I mean, they just crushed it. So it's super comfortable. There's no sharp spots on the back here. This isn't sharp, even though it does come to like an edge. You know, it's not pointy. It's not going to hurt your hand. The only sharp spot on the entire frame is right up here. All right, and that's intentional. I mean, it's just sort of there for show. There's no reason that you're going to ever need to like be digging in at that point. But I mean, theoretically, depending on how you're holding the knife, how you're using it, I mean, you could use this spot here for grip and, you know, like change some things around and it still be comfortable without poking you. So, I mean, that spot, not an issue whatsoever. So yeah, really good. Just really, really good. Last thing, and one thing that I always like to pay attention to, especially when I have a nicer knife that's a titanium or stainless steel frame lock, I try to get a feel of this area right here and how that's finished. Because on something that's a little bit cheaper, you know, you'll have some sharpness here, and you'll have like a lip, and that transition piece won't be that good. It's actually pretty darn good on the Swindle, to be honest, but it's pretty seamless here on the Swayback. So yeah, again, a very nice level of finishing when it comes to that. Now we're going to talk about the biggest surprise of the whole darn knife, and you guys are not going to believe this. You're not going to believe what I'm going to say about the clip, because when I knew that I was getting this knife, I was ready to just bag on this clip. I knew 100% that it was going to be something that I wasn't going to like, and I was just going to knock on Spyderco for not putting a wire clip on this, or not having a deep carry clip, or why are they using this stupid clip for this knife. And if we're going to be really real, I don't have a problem with this design clip from Spyderco at all. I like it just fine. You take a look at my Paramilitary 2, I mean, I don't change the clip out. It's great. It works fine. Maybe it leaves a little bit of real estate, whatever. You know, that's not a huge deal for me. I really don't love the look of Lynch clips, to be honest. And I had one for my PM3 just because of the positioning of this clip. And that's always the problem. Where it's positioned is always the issue. And it sort of puts you in a bind of either like getting a aftermarket clip or just having a clip that you don't really like. I thought for sure that I was going to think that this clip sucked on this knife. And I have to tell you guys, I don't. I think it's fine. Even maybe beyond fine. I think it's pretty good. Now, would this knife be excellent with a wire clip on it? Maybe. Yeah, maybe it would be great. And maybe it should have a wire clip instead. But this is not a clip that is it's not a clip that's ever even going to bother me one bit. Never. Never. I think it's a good looking clip. I like the satin kind of pop, especially with the hardware. I think it looks good. And it rides pretty well. There's a little bit of real estate poking up, but not enough for it to be any kind of concern. So it carries exactly the way that I would want it to. It's reversible to the left side, so for lefties, we're in good shape. I mean, honestly, I have no problem with this clip. Now, I reserve all right to come back and blast Spyderco for stupid clip decisions in the future, because we all know they're going to make them, but this isn't one of them. And when that's the case, you got to be real. And yeah, I like it. So I know you guys are going to disagree with me for this in a lot of ways, I'm sure, but not for me. Not really a problem. We do have the lanyard tube or hole that is in a spot that doesn't get in the way of the clip, so I definitely appreciate that. One thing as far as QC fit and finish that some people always ask about when you have this like very, very close tip in the frame. Can you get poked by it? I mean, if you stuck your thumb in there, I'm sticking my thumb in there right now, I can poke myself with it. I could, you know? And so that could be a thing, but it's not something that could happen accidentally, I don't think. So the way that this is fitting into the back of the frame, I think we're in great shape. And as long as you're not digging around and like reaching in there, you're gonna be just fine. All right, so that is that. Let's get into the coolest part of the knife. Opening and closing, always the most fun. And lockup, we'll start with that. So here is the engagement of the stainless steel interface. You can see that it's a little bit later than I'd like, but it is something that will just continually adjust, and I have zero issue with the way that this knife locks up. So, I mean, I can feel a tiny little bit of movement every now and then, But again, they do a really good job with this stuff with Spyderco, and over the course of time, it just creates a stronger and stronger lockup. We also, as you can see right here, we do have an over travel stop. So that is a nice addition that you'd basically expect though. But now let's talk about opening and closing. So this knife is a fun one to flick open, but we do not have a spider flick capability right-handed just because of the way this hole is blocked on the opposite side. So right-handed deployment, you have a flick, drop shut pretty nicely. See? So we have that, really nice and snappy. We have the slow roll, and you can see when I break the detent, I mean, it comes out far. So the detent is strong, right? Not gonna shake out, so we're good there. Lefties, you're in heaven here, because not only do we have a reversible clip, you have the Spidey flick capability on the left side. All right, so that is, for me, being left-handed, that's pretty cool. Gives it nice fidget capability, but you know, it's also just fun to do. So yeah, we definitely are checking a lot of boxes here with that. All right, so as we go through the knife one more time, yeah, there's just a lot of things I like about this. The design might be looked at as a little bit clunky, you know, especially when you bring in something as sleek as the Swindle here. You know, you can see how this swayback design is sort of taken, but it still has the designer's kind of feel. Both of these knives actually still have the designer's impression of that design, right? Of that idea. And this one from Schleich is a little bit more of a chunk, and it has a little bit more of a straight line to it. And honestly, it's a little bit more of a worker than the Swindle, you know, and it is a classy worker, but it's a worker. It's a knife that you're going to be able to do a lot with. That is for sure. So is it worth $273? That's the question, right? That's the question that we're going to come down to. We're going to come down to all these different debates and all these different like ways of looking at things and who likes what and who thinks this is better than that. So here's what I'm going to say, guys. $273 is a lot of money for a knife. It's a lot of money for any knife, right? Now, if you are just looking for a good cutting tool, if you want a titanium frame lock with XHP level steel, that I mean S35VN, M390, you can find knives of those materials. You can find a Kaiser, or you can find a Bestech, or you can find a number of other models that are going to be $100 cheaper. And are you going to be able to notice a difference or identify a difference? Maybe not. You know, so like if this isn't your thing, then it might not be something that you're interested in. You know, if I had a choice to take a knife, regardless of what they go for on the secondary market, or regardless of how good, you know, the Schleich Bowie is, if I had to pick one of these two knives, I would take the Swayback every day of the week and twice on Sunday. It's not even a question. There's just not that many knives out there like this. There's not that many knives out there that you can get at this like quality, like of this type of design. I can count a ton of knives that have this type of blade shape, you know, and that are this size and different price ranges. It's like, I don't think the Schleich Bowie for me is even nearly like remotely as special as the Swayback. So for me, like that value there just doesn't make any sense. And that's how you have to approach something like this, is that like over the course of time, if you spend the money on this knife, like you're going to get your value. It's a well-made knife. You know, if you're trying to pick between this and that, and you have a budget and you only have X amount of money to spend on a knife, like, is this going to be the one for you? Maybe not, you know? But when you're holding this knife, you feel a level of quality that is very good. Now, when I hold the Chris Reeve in my other hand, there is something, you know, there is something about the Chris Reeve quality that makes it stand apart from the Swayback. It's not identifiable. I don't know if it's just a level of tolerances that is just yay, like better, just to like a tiny degree. I don't know. I know that there is a feeling of quality with the Chris Reeve that is superior to a Swayback. And I also know that if you have the Swayback in one hand and you have, let's say, this is my favorite Kaiser. It's not in production anymore, but you have the Cordo in your other hand. And I think this sold for around $100 and something when it was out and available. There is a difference of quality between this and this, where like you know that the Swayback is just a better knife, even though it's not necessarily identifiable. And if you're cutting stuff with it, you're not going to care about that. And that's sort of the point. It's like, what do you want the knife for? What do you really care about? What's the design that you're looking for? And at the end of the day, that's how you make your choice. You know, but for a lot of people who I think might be interested in this, if you've never had a Chris Reeve, like, and you're thinking, well, why would I spend $273, like save another $150 and then I'll have this, like, that's a valid argument. And that's an argument that Spyderco like is opening the door for when they have knives that are priced at this price point. You know, and whether it's a positive or negative for the Swayback, you know, that's up to you guys when you get it in hand. For me, I think it's a pretty darn good knife, and yeah, I think it's worth the investment. So that's what I have, guys. Any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. Let me know what you think about the value part of it, because that is always a very compelling kind of argument when it comes to Spyderco. All right. Thanks again to Drew for letting me borrow the Schliess Bowie here. This thing is pretty sweet, although, like I said, for me, it's just a knife. The Swayback is just a design above. All right. Take care, guys. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.